Recording in progress.
Hello, my fellow Shakespeare scholars and readers. We are going to continue our discussion of Romeo and Juliet. Can't wait to talk to you about Act 2 in class. However, we're going to just do a little setup here so you can get a framework before you read, or as you read, or after you read, whichever way you want to do it, just so that you get a big picture of what's happening in each scene of Romeo and Juliet in Act 2. All right, this act has 6 scenes. Some are longer than others. We're going to cover the prologue and scene 1 in this video, and I'll try to just keep my comments brief and just give you some handles to hold on to as you read. In the prologue, again, echoes of that Greek chorus, I think, which to me is so tied to tragedy. And we've got this chorus that's going to come in, and they're basically going to tell us what's happened, what's happening. And it is a sonnet. It's written in a sonnet form. So we're going to look at that. So prologue in scene 1. In scene 1, Mercutio and Benvolio go searching for Romeo. When we left off the play, he had just met Juliet at Capulet's party. In scene 2, there's the famous balcony scene at Juliet's window where they confess their love to one another. In scene 3, they're going to go to the friar. If you need help, who do you go to? You go to your priest or pastor or spiritual leader, and that's what Romeo and Juliet do. And then we'll kind of continue on from there. But let's just focus primarily on the prologue in scene 1 in this video. In the prologue, at the beginning of Act 2, we have a sonnet. And if you notice the form, if you just look at the shape, something we do when we look at poems often in classes that you've had with me before, this is a sonnet. And within the sonnet, there's 3, see those 3 chunks there? Those like stanzas, we call them in poems, but they're quatrains. There's 4 lines in each of these chunks. And that ends with a couplet. And then as you read through it, you'll notice it's following a particular rhyme pattern. And it's A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, E, F, G, G. It's just kind of a very standard Shakespearean sonnet rhyme scheme, if you will. And then, of course, he does, he uses literary devices all the time, rhetorical devices. You're going to see alliteration throughout here. But that's just the shape. That's just the form. And form matters, so it's good to take a look at that. And again, interestingly, sonnets often dealt with love primarily. That was kind of what they were about. And we take a look at this first line. Old desire doth in his deathbed lie. Something has died. What has died? And that's what you need to figure out. So death being the primary image, I think, that runs throughout the lines of this play. And what has died but the affection for Rosaline? That is dead. Let me pause the video just for 1 second. Okay. His death for her, his love for her has died. He no longer loves Rosaline. Now he loves Juliet. You're going to see that in that first stanza. Now old desire doth in his deathbed lie, and young affection gapes to be his heir. So what wants to be the heir? What the inheritor? Who is going to be on the throne next, if you will? It's no longer Rosaline, it's Juliet. That fair, and fair here means beauty, for which love groaned for and would die. So the love that he had, the beautiful Rosaline, he moaned over her and groaned over her. He would die for her. He'd stand in front of a train for her. Like he'd do. Is there a song like that or something? There's some kind of famous song. I would die for ya or something. I don't know. I'm not into pop music culture, but somebody knows here. He would do anything for her love. But that's over. I mean, that was like yesterday, right? That's old news. And now Juliet has taken the place. So the fair for which love groaned for and would die, take note of that, he would die for Rosaline, with tender Juliet matched, is now not fair. So now that he is comparing Rosaline to Juliet, that old love, she's not beautiful anymore. She is no longer for him. Now Romeo is beloved and loves again. Alike, that says betwitched, and that's a typo. It should be bewitched. Okay, just there you go. A freebie. Mrs. Brand made a mistake. Alike bewitched by the charm of looks. But to his foe supposed he must complain, and she still loves bait from fearful hooks. Okay, so the word bewitched here kind of recalls the idea that his heart has been struck by Cupid. He's under a spell. He has seen Juliet, and her beauty has just enchanted him. But she is his foe, at least in terms of the angst between the Capulets and the Montagues, right? And the last line here, she has to steal love's sweet bait from fearful hooks. Well, what is the bait? Romeo here would be the bait, right? She wants this relationship with Romeo, but what's the hook? The hook is the danger that is involved with the Montague family. They're the enemy to the Capulets. She wants Romeo without any of the pain of crossing her family in aligning with an enemy. So that's the hook. The hook is, what do I do about my family? What do I do about all the Capulets who are going to get angry with me that I'm in love with a Montague? And then in this third stanza, being held a foe, he may not have access to breathe such vows as lovers use to swear. And she, as much in love, her means much less to meet her new beloved anywhere. So she has less ability to do anything about this love than he does, which is really interesting. Because as we watch this play out, she does call some shots here. And then the couplet ends, but passion lends them power. Time lends them, there's some words left out there, lends them the means to meet, tempering extremities with extreme sweet. So passion, that's what's giving them the drive, right, to pursue one another. It's their feelings. It's their longing for one another. And time, at this point in their relationship, it's a secret. It's less than 24 hours old at this point. And so while it is secret, time is on their side. They could arrange a meeting without anybody really knowing or upsetting their families. And then this last line, the extremities, tempering extremities with extreme sweet. So extremities. So think about anything that like a crisis, like chaos, something that goes to the extreme level, a difficult situation. So it's tempering their difficult situation with extreme sweet. It's just so lovely and darling. Love, exciting and new. That's kind of what is happening. So as you read that and read through that, consider some of those things. Rosalind was the it girl, and now she has been replaced by Juliet. So hopefully you kind of get the feeling here that Romeo is a little bit fickle. Like he was in love yesterday and would have died for Rosalind. And now that same love is being shared towards Juliet. So that'll be a fun discussion in class. Let's take a look at Romeo and Juliet Act 2, Scene 1. If you want to pause the video and go back and read the prologue, you're welcome to do that. That's a good idea. But because Scene 1 is rather short and very much kind of sets up Scene 2, I'm just going to go over Scene 1 here, and then that will be it for this video. So in Scene 1, there's been a party all night long, and they've had a great time. Romeo has met Juliet. He is in love. Love bells are chiming. He doesn't want to leave the Capulets' orchard. He can't leave because Juliet is there. Ooh. Now, you're teenagers, though. I don't know. As an adult, I'm kind of thinking that teenage love, it's like everything is now and instant, and I have to have this. And he can't just like go to bed and go get a couple hours sleep and think on this. Oh no, he has got to stay because that's where Juliet is. But prior to getting to that scene, his buddies are looking for him. So we have Mercutio and Benvolio. They're not in the same place Romeo is. They haven't found a girl that they're Twitter pated over. They were at the party and they're looking for Romeo. And you can just imagine that his friends are going to probably jab him a little bit, make fun of him a little bit. If you remember earlier in the day, he could hardly put one foot in front of the other to go to the party. He was moping and, oh, sad hours, right? Long days. He was at home drawing the curtains, making it dark so he could mope and cry. And now he's in love again. So, I mean, he has just opened himself wide up to be made fun of here. Mercutio, let's see. Mercutio is a pretty spicy character. And the next couple of interactions that you have with Mercutio, boy, I'll try to give you a good framework, but he's a puzzle. He says some things that are just confusing, and sometimes, often we'll say something that's a little bawdy or crass. He's an interesting character. And let's talk about and think about maybe comparing and contrasting him and Romeo. They both use words in a way that are poetic and Mercutio is much of a jokester and Romeo is dead serious about his love, but is it a real kind of love? It'll be interesting to kind of contrast these characters. Anyway, Mercutio is going to call out for Romeo. And it opens with Romeo saying, "How can I go forward when my heart is here? Turn back, dull earth, and find thy center out." So the dull earth that he's referring to here is his body. Turn back, he says. Go back to Juliet's house, which is pretty dumb because he's a Montague. If anybody finds him there, he is toast. But he can't he? Because his love is there. So he says, "Can I go forward? My heart is here. Turn back, dull earth, and find thy center out." That's just a really interesting thing to say. The medievals, oh boy, I don't want to take too long here, but the medievals really thought that the earth was the center, right? So then of the universe. So what would be the center of the universe would be the center of man's heart. If his body is the earth, the very center would be his heart, and his heart is Juliet. He's got to go find his center. So the friends come in and they're Romeo, they're calling for him. And Mercutio's like, he probably just went home to bed. And Benvolio says, "No, I saw him go this way. He jumped over the orchard wall," which, not that bright. "Call him, Mercutio." I wonder what Benvolio's motivation is there. And Mercutio says, "No, I'll conjure him." That's just a great word. I'll conjure him. And he starts saying things like Romeo, that's his name, humors, madman, passion, lover, starting to use like emotional language, poetic language. Appear in the likeness of a sigh. Because Romeo, remember? So in love. Speak but one rhyme and I am satisfied. Mercutio's making fun of Romeo. Tell us a poem. Give us a poem, right? Like that, if your buddy starts saying that to you, like tell me some poetry, they're making fun of you. That's what Mercutio is doing. He says to Romeo, "Cry, but I me. Pronounce love and dove." Little poem there. "Speak to my gossip Venus. One fair words of Venus," would be the goddess of love. "One nickname for her purblind son," that's Cupid in air. "He that shot so trim when King, I don't even know how to pronounce this, Cophetua, I think, loved that beggar maid." So King Cophetua, he is a king who in a medieval story, I'm not exactly sure the history there, but he fell in love with a poor girl and he proposed marriage on the spot. So that's interesting if you compare that to Romeo. He fell in love on the spot, and we'll see what happens in this balcony scene. And then he pauses and he says, "He heareth not, he stirreth not, he moveth not," right? Like he's nowhere to be found. And then he says this line, "The ape is dead." And that is a very interesting image. Let me find my note on that. Do I have a note on that? Okay, I don't have a note on that, but I know what I'm going to talk about. Okay, so the ape is dead. He's basically calling Romeo an ape, right? But that's kind of, and we have death. So again, more death imagery. But it's interesting that he's calling him an ape because the medievals, royals, aristocrats, many of them had monkeys or apes. And they would use monkeys and apes in performance, right? And because they can perform tricks and play dead and do all these funny things, they kind of like imitate humans a little bit. And in medieval art and stories, apes would represent, well, I don't have a note on this. I'm sure I wrote something down. But apes would represent, oh yeah, I do, here it is. They were a popular part of entertainment in medieval England. There were traveling shows that would use apes, and they were often depicted in art or vases. They could mimic human behavior, but when they would be in these shows, they often signified the foolishness of a man, or showed, and I think this is key to Romeo, the unbridled nature of man. A man who doesn't keep his emotions and his will under control. Interesting, because Mercutio just called Romeo an ape. The ape is dead. So that conjures so many things for me. Like, is Romeo play acting? Is he putting on a show that he is in love? Is this real? That's a big question in my mind. And then also, to what degree is Romeo somebody who's unbridled? Think about that word, unbridled. I think about a horse maybe having a bridle. What does the bridle do? It helps direct, show the way. And if Romeo is unbridled, he's kind of, think about that earlier video we talked about, that navigational, he's charting a course, if you will. And if he doesn't have direction, if he doesn't have, I guess that those boundaries showing him the way and directing him the way, what does unbridled behavior do? What might be a natural consequence of unbridled behavior? Okay, there's a whole bunch of stuff right there just in the ape is dead. We'll move on. I must conjure him, says Mercutio. I must call him up. I conjure him by Rosalind's beautiful eyes, by her forehead. Okay, he goes on and on and on. And Benvolio says, come. He hid himself among these trees. He's not here. Anything else I want to tell you about this scene? He doesn't want to be found. He hears his friends, right? And at the start of the next scene, which we'll cover in the next video, he says of Mercutio, he jests at scars that never felt a wound. So he's saying that Mercutio is making fun, right? He's jesting. That he's never felt the wound. He's never been struck by Cupid. So very short scene, and just establishes that his friends are looking for him. They're making fun of him because he's kind of Twitter-pated. And, well, not they. I would say just Mercutio. Benvolio doesn't necessarily make fun of him here. And Benvolio's wise at the end of the scene. He says it's vain to seek him here. That means not to be found. He doesn't want to be found. So let's just go home. And that's the end of scene 1. All right, join me for the Act 2, Scene 2 video, which is much longer. Great scene. Most famous scene, I think, in Romeo and Juliet is the balcony scene. So God bless.